Gachiakuta fans, lock in. Today we're going to go over how to make, start to finish, JABBER's entire ensemble. Yes, I might sound a little different today. I lost my mic, and I'm also recording from the sauna at my gym. Before we get started, I'm going to ask that you subscribe if you're looking forward to making any of these parts, from the hoodie, the pants, just the shirt itself, or even the light that they keep on their hips. Just subscribe. Those are coming next. This is just the first of 4 or 5 videos. And make sure you drop a like if you learned something new, or if you're just going to follow along and make your own, and drop a comment to let me know which part you want to see next. I know a lot of people just want to see the hood itself, and that was pretty hard to make. So I'm definitely going to upload that one soon, but it may not be next. If you want it next, comment below. So if you're like me, you've probably never sewn anything in your life. So you may or may not have a sewing machine. I actually had this one for 2 years and never whipped it out. So you're actually gonna see me trying to make my own patterns, learning how to even use a sewing machine, learning different sewing patterns, and breaking a few needles. But we're gonna get through it together, and I think it came out pretty good. So I'm gonna do this probably in maybe 4 or 5 parts, but we're gonna start with the pants. And the type of pants that I chose to use, and I think it pretty much matches up with what JABBER's wearing, is harem pants. So I happen to already have a pair of harem pants because I bought them for when I went to Egypt. So I just kept them around. So I just figured I would use those. I thought about cutting them apart to try to trace the pattern, but I think it was good enough just to lay them down onto some parchment paper or some packing paper. And then with that, you'll just cut that out 4 times. And since they're so baggy and loose around the crotch area, around the ankle area, then you don't really have to get the perfect measurements. The only one you really need to do is make sure that it's not too small for your waist area, and make sure it's not too small for your legs. Also comment down below if there's any specific measurements or angles that you want me to recount. I did take them. I just didn't put them on here just because I'm just tracing out the harem pants that I have, and they're pretty unique to that pair of pants. And then my size, I'm 5'7", 200 pounds, usually wear a large and everything. So I figured I didn't need to put that in here just because I just traced the harem pants and then made the pattern from that. You can see that I'm tracing around it with a marker just to widen it up, and then I kind of darken that in. That's where I cut it out from. So that's me adding a 1/4 inch seam. I'd recommend adding a 1/2 inch, to be honest. If you're new at this like I was, like it got really tight near the end. Like I didn't make the waist wide enough, because with harem pants is a really stretchy elastic band at the waist. So when I first traced it, I traced it at the smallest, I guess, circumference for the waist. And that means that it's going to be a little too tight when I put it on. So that 1/4 inch on all 4 actually ended up being just enough so I could squeeze it on. And I went back and redid that on the actual pair of pants. I made it bigger to avoid that issue. You also probably noticed that I did not cut above where the waistband is where I traced it, because that's a separate part that I did. So you cut out the pants itself for each leg, the front, the back, and then the front and the back for the right leg as well. And then you do the waistband, and you do the leg bands separately. You don't include those in the original part, especially if you want to use a different material. So for me, I used a stretchy material, a really nice purple fabric for that. So I didn't include it in the actual straight cutout. Also, it's not important that I have all this weird stuff I'm laying on top of it. That's just to keep it straight down. So because the cutters that I have for my fabric are shears. So obviously as I'm moving, the fabric's gonna try to move too. And same thing for the parchment paper. It came in a roll, so it's trying to roll back up. So I'm just using all these different things to make sure that it stays down. Once again, these are harem pants. So lucky me, the shape doesn't have to be perfect. And they're gonna be so baggy that it's barely noticeable if you don't get it perfectly. You just have to make sure that you get that leg area and your waist area a big enough size, and then you can use the elastic band or whatever stretching material you want to use for the waistband, and that'll pull it back in. So even if you make it massive for the waistband, it won't really matter, because you can pull it back in with the stretchy material or some elastic. Alright, so you're saying we do pretty much the same thing over and over. Tracing, cutting, and that's kind of a big theme with using a sewing machine, I guess. This is my first time, like I said, so I'm not a professional or anything, you can't quote me on that. But for me, there was a lot of tracing and cutting, especially for pants, because the 4 parts were the same for these harem pants. So just doing it over and over. But if you're tired of watching me cut out stuff, you can speed it up. Well, I'm gonna say that this video was 2.5 hours before I sped it up and cropped out all the useless stuff. So if you think that this video is kind of long to get the point across, and you've never sewn anything, you've never used a sewing machine, I don't want to say good luck to you, but I'm definitely going to say reduce your expectations to 0. You are going to be spending some time on this, but I promise it's worth it in the end. Okay, so here, there's actually 4 layers there. I'm only showing you 2 because I'm making 1 leg. You're only gonna be sewing 2 edges originally, and then the crotch comes together once you have both legs sewn together, basically. So you see me pinning all around it. That's to make sure that I get the 1/4 inch seam or 1/2 inch seam, whatever you may be doing. That means when I run the sewing machine, when I run the sewing needle, the way I line it up is that I'm gonna hit each needle if I don't stop, and that'll keep me straight. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I broke a needle that way, and probably any professional will tell you don't put anything in the line of the needle. Come on. But whatever, I did that because I was new. So I line it up, you can see the 1/2 inch or the 1/4 inch, whichever one I chose, I think it was the 1/4 inch. And as I'm going around sewing it, I'll pick out each needle. It's like my stopping point to keep myself straightened on that part, on that distance from the edge like I'm supposed to. If you haven't subscribed, now's a good time. You can kind of see the form of the pants coming together. We got a nice little break. There's nothing to really talk about as I line this up. So it's a good chance for you to hit that like button, drop a comment if you have any questions or just concerns in general, and then subscribe. Something you may have noticed is that Jabber does not wear yellow harem pants or yellow pretty much anything. So I just wanted to point out that I'm specifically using an old bed sheet that I had, and I think if you're new, you should do that. Hands down, you should do that. Cut up a piece, sew it together, make sure you're running your line straight, make sure that you threaded your bobbin and your needle correctly, make sure nothing's coming out loose or anything like that, make sure you don't jam. Don't go straight into using your expensive fabric or your nice fabric or your limited fabric. Use an old bed sheet, an old pillowcase, use anything to 1, practice your lines, and then 2, just to make sure that sewing machine is correct, and then 3, I made this entire harem pants out of an old bed sheet just to make sure that I could make harem pants before I use my good fabric on it. And that's probably why it took me almost 200 hours to do the entire thing. Like pants, the shirt, the designs on the shirt, because I don't have an embroider, so I just had to kind of crochet some of the designs myself. The hood, it took a long time because I was very cautious and I knew that I could easily mess this up, and I had to take it apart a few times. So just don't make your mistakes on your first project or your good fabric. Make your mistakes on something like an old bed sheet, some old curtains you may have around. But word to the wise, if you're using old curtains, there's a certain needle for thicker and stretchier fabric. There's different needles, so you may break a needle. Alright, so here you can see I put both legs together. It's cheap fabric from an old bed sheet, so it's see-through. Don't mind that. But look at the shape of it. You can see that it's shaped like harem pants. It's baggy in the middle, tight down at the legs. That was before I added any waistband or anything. So this next scene is me making the waistband, but it's pretty loose fitting. You could run in it, you could jump in it. If it wasn't that goofy yellow color, I would have worn those. That was pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. For the waistband, you're going to want to measure double the size you expect the waistband to be, and then add an inch and I'm talking about vertically, up and down, how thick you want that waistband to be. So for these harem pants, you want a really thick one that kind of rises up your stomach. Not too high, but it looks like I think it's called a Harem. It's like what Zoro wears, that band around his stomach. So you want something like that, but not too high. But it really stands out when it's a different color. And if you try to make it stand out, then you want it to be more noticeable than just a thin waistband. So make sure you do double the size, fold it over in half, and that'll give you a thicker, nicer, more professional looking one. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm putting the needles out. I'm using I'm using my cutting mat to make sure that I keep my lines straight as possible. It's harder than I thought to cut and draw a straight line for that long. So I helped myself out with some needles or the pens, and I had to help myself out by using that cutting mat. So you just saw me fold it into two, and I'm pinning it again to make sure that, you know, I get to the end and I was off at an angle. And I'm running it through, so now it'll be a double line of fabric. It'll be a double line of fabric. Make it thicker, make it nicer, and then I'll sew that onto the top of the pants, and you'll have a waistband. That was me lining it up with the pins. I pinned them together. You're gonna want to go right side to right side. So with every fabric, there should be a right and a wrong side, or it could be both right sides, but always look for a right and a wrong side. And basically the right side is the side that you want everyone to see, and the wrong side is the side that will be with the inseams and everything. So line those up, right side to right side, which means that the wrong side is what you see while you're stitching. And you start to put the pants together, so now you can see that there's a waistband on it. I'm showing you like how good I did on the stitching for my first try. Not great, but not terrible, and it works, and nothing fell apart on me. This next seam looks a little goofy. It's not the greatest quality, but only because it's actually cut from a live that I had with another cosplayer and crafter. So I accomplished a lot on that day, so I didn't really want to throw out the footage, and I didn't want to come back and just be like, okay, look at the finished product. So you probably noticed that now I'm working with a dark blue material, and that's the actual harem pants that I'll be wearing. So I've gone through, I've made my pattern, I've succeeded at making my first pair of, I guess, mock-up harem pants, and now I've applied all of those steps to the actual fabric that I needed. And I'm doing this during the live. So you'll see me taking apart a mistake that I made. I put the inseam on the outside. No matter how much I repeat to myself, right side to right side, I'll still, for some reason, put wrong side to wrong side and stitch it backwards. So a bunch of this is just me taking that out, and I guess this is a good tutorial on how to do so. How to properly sew without tearing your fabric. And then you can see me sewing it back together the correct way. And once I'm done, I'll show you kind of what the seams look like and how the harem pants came out. So let's take a look. All my seams are on the correct side. They're nice and big. So once I apply that waistband, it'll pull it in to size, and then we're good to go. Speaking of the waistband, here's the fabric that I wanted to make sure that I didn't waste. It's just a really nice, stretchy, shiny fabric. So I had to make sure I lined it up correctly where the horizontal angle would stretch around my waist, because it only stretches in, you know, that 1-2 direction. I wanted to make sure that I get the best use out of it. There's no point of it stretching vertically along my body, because that won't help me fit into anything. So I had to make sure that I lined that up. I did that. I want to keep my lines straight. What you don't see is that I had to iron this thing like literally 15 times because it curls at the edges. So this was probably not the waistband itself, but this fabric was the hardest thing. And I would not recommend, if you are completely new like I was, using this fabric right out the gate. Maybe get a friend to help, someone who knows a little more, has done it before, or maybe get a few tutorials. because everything you need is probably on YouTube, and if it's not, it will be once I'm done here. So again, keep in mind, we're making that waistband double what you want, because we're gonna fold it over so that you'll have the right side on both sides of the waistband. So the fabric will have the shiny, stretchy, nice looking design on it, on the inside of your pants and the outside. Probably another good time for a shameless plug. Please make sure you subscribe, like, and comment below which part you want me to do next. I did make the whole pants, that's this part. I made the hood separate, and then I sewed it on, and then I made the shirt. And I had to make the sleeve patterns myself, which I hear is a really cool thing for someone to do when they're just new. So I'm glad that those came out really successful. The big deal with the sleeves is that they start off thin and then they get really, really loose so that they hang when he lifts his arms. And I pulled that off pretty well. And I think that'll be a good one for everyone to see how you can put the shirt together without having one shirt. You can use multiple shirts if you want to trace a pattern. But I ended up having to draw the pattern for the sleeves myself. And it wasn't too hard, because once again, it wasn't something that was snug against my body. It was something that kind of was formless, kind of like these harem pants. So that was actually a really fun one for me. So make sure you comment below which video you want to see next. And that'll be the next one that I voice over and upload. And comment below if you need any measurements for any of the stuff. Like, I have them, but once again, this is all fitted to my body. Or literally a trace pattern from the harem pants that I have. I can give you all the measurements down in the comments if someone's asking for them. If not, just make sure that you watch the video once through and then watch the video as you go along. So here I'm showing the actual waistband on my body, and then I'm showing after I attached it to the harem pants. And that concludes how to make JABBER's pants. The next segment, I'll just look at the comments to see what comes next, but make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss that next installment of JABBER's outfit. Thanks everyone.